You're not poor because of fate. You're not stuck because of an unfair society, a disadvantaged family, or because the world favors only the wealthy. All of those excuses may sound reasonable, but they exist only to hide a truth you don't want to face. You're poor because of your habits, and habits are what you repeat so often that you no longer recognize how they're quietly destroying your life. You're poor because you wake up every day without a clear plan, because you start your morning scrolling through social media, complaining about prices, blaming the economy, then end the day without creating any value that others would pay for. You're not poor because the world has shut its doors on you. You're poor because you've never once knocked. I've seen people born into poverty who broke out of it in extraordinary ways, not by winning the lottery, not by luck, but because they made a decision either change who they are or stay stuck in a cycle of failure. And to change, they started with the smallest things. They stopped wasting time on meaningless conversations, stopped blaming their parents, the government, or the market, and stopped waiting for a miracle. They chose to wake up earlier, read more, listen to people who were smarter than them, and take action even when they were still afraid. On the other hand, I've seen hundreds of people with every advantage: good health, sharp minds, access to technology and information, even strong support networks, yet they remain poor, still stuck in a loop of temporary jobs, reckless spending, procrastinating on every opportunity, and repeating the same mistakes for years, because they believe that if they just wait for the right time, life will eventually turn around. But there's no time more right than now. Opportunities don't come to dreamers, they come to people whose behavior aligns with the outcomes they seek. You can sit there and write a long list of everything you want: a higher income, financial freedom, more time to rest, a better home, the ability to provide more for your family. But if every day you still choose television over books, if you spend your time comparing yourself to others instead of investing in your own skills, then you are actively pushing those goals further away from your reach. The world today isn't lacking an opportunity. What it lacks is people with the discipline to seize it. You live in an era where every piece of knowledge you need to change your life is available online. Yet you remain poor, not because you lack information, but because your habits don't allow you to act on that information. You know you should save money, but you overspend. You know you should learn new skills, but you click on entertainment instead. You know you should invest, but you delay out of fear. You're not short on answers. You're short on commitment to doing the right thing repeatedly until results change. Look at your schedule today. If someone were to observe you for 24 hours, would they see the habits of someone on the path to wealth or the habits of someone clinging to the comfort of a limited life? The difference isn't in the dreams. Everyone wants a better life, but not everyone is willing to live differently to make it real. Habits are the silent operating system that controls every result you have. And poverty isn't a single event. It's a series of small decisions repeated until they become a lifestyle. If you don't change the operating system, then even if you change your job, your environment, or the year of your birth, your outcomes will stay the same. The scary part isn't that you have nothing. The scary part is that you keep living like this without ever asking, what kind of future am I programming for myself? And if you're still reading this, then there's one thing I'm certain of. You already feel that your current habits no longer serve you. The only question is, what will you replace them with? Because you can't continue old behaviors and expect new results. That is the very definition of delusion. You don't need more opportunities. You need to eliminate the habits that are silently killing your potential each day. The right opportunities will come to you the moment you become someone who deserves them. And that version of you is built by behavior, not luck, not circumstances, but a new decision starting today. You can't build a future if your mouth is constantly busy complaining about the present. Complaining doesn't fix problems, it only prolongs the time you're willing to tolerate them. The more you complain, the more you get used to talking about your problems instead of doing something to change them. It gives you a false sense that you're being productive, that you're analyzing the situation, that you're deeply aware, when in reality you're standing still. And if you stand still long enough, you'll start to sink, not because someone pushed you, but because you chose not to move forward. I used to be that person. I used to think I was smart for pointing out other people's faults, the flaws in the system, the shortcomings of society. I believed that seeing the wrongs meant I was above them, but I was wrong. Knowing the problem doesn't make you better. Solving it does. And when I sat down and looked my life in the face, I realized I was rich in reasons, but poor in results. I had a full list of things to blame, but not a single action item in my note. Everything I wished for remained stuck because I was stuck. You want to increase your income, but day after day, you're still the same person. You're not learning new skills. You're not upgrading your thinking. You're not putting yourself in challenging environments. You just keep complaining about your low salary or how your company doesn't recognize your potential. But the truth is, the market doesn't pay you because you're frustrated with your reality. It pays you because you provide solutions. Don't like your boss? Fine. Become so good that other companies fight to hire you. Hate your current job? Then stop spending your evenings glued to your phone. Use that time to learn something that can get you out of the place that drains you. No one owes you a better job. You have to earn it with your capability, not your complaints. Unhappy with your finances? Of course, but instead of comparing yourself to strangers online, sit down and audit yourself. Every dollar you spend, every minute you use is buying the results you have right now. Don't say I can't afford to invest when you're still getting coffee every morning, placing mindless online orders, and paying for short-term experiences that bring no long-term value. The market doesn't care what you think is worth it or deserved. It only responds to the behaviors you repeat every day. How much are you investing in your mind? How far are you willing to step out of your comfort zone? How much of what you say you want are you truly committed to? The difference between those who succeed and those who struggle endlessly isn't their circumstances, it's how they respond to those circumstances. Successful people don't complain, they respond. They treat problems like equations and start solving them. Meanwhile, people who fail like to live in the feeling of being a victim. Because when you're the victim, you don't have to take responsibility, you're allowed to give up, to get angry, to blame others. But along with those rights comes a harsh truth. You will never change. You cannot hold on to both your excuses and your results. You either choose to keep complaining and stay where you are, or you choose to act and start changing. No one can do both. Ask yourself honestly, every time I complain, what am I trying to achieve? Attention, sympathy, avoidance of truth, or just creating an excuse to dodge real responsibility? If you're honest with yourself, you'll see that most of the complaints you've made were useless. They didn't change anything. They didn't solve anything. They didn't move you forward. So why keep them? It's time to shift your mindset. Every time you're about to complain about something, turn it into a question that leads to action. I hate this job. What do I need to learn to get a better one? I'm tired of my financial situation. What expenses can I cut? Where can I earn more? No one supports me. Am I actively seeking a better environment or just waiting passively? These are the kinds of questions that open new paths. Not size, not blame, but a mindset of repair. Because in the end, you have to choose. Do you want pity or do you want freedom? Do you want others to feel sorry for your situation or do you want to be the one who breaks free from it? The truth is, no one is coming to save you. But that's not bad news. That's an invitation. You have every power to save yourself if you're brave enough to stop talking about the problem and start building the solution. Not everyone wearing designer shoes is rich. Not everyone driving a luxury car is financially free. And certainly not everyone living in a lavish apartment is living their dream life. The reality is many people are performing the role of success by spending as if they've already arrived, while their bank accounts are silently screaming for help. The problem isn't in what you buy, but why you buy it. Are you truly investing in value, or are you trying to fool others with appearances, or worse, fooling yourself? I once met a man with an average job, modest income, but he always had the latest phone, a branded wallet, and spent his weekends at upscale check-in spots. But after a few conversations, I realized he wasn't rich. He just spent like he was. His savings were close to zero, his credit cards maxed out, and he had no passive income, only a fixed salary every month. You see, financial strength isn't shown by appearances. It lies in your stability, your ability to withstand risks, and above all, in how you use money to serve your future, not your ego in the present. I'm not saying you have to live miserably. I'm saying you have to live wisely. Truly wealthy people don't try to impress. They build assets. They make money work for them instead of burning it just to prove something to people who don't matter. The poor often fall into a deadly trap. They spend money to be validated. They buy things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people. they don't even care about. And in doing so, they trap themselves in a vicious cycle. Work, spend, debt, stress, then back to work. Never with surplus, never moving forward. And if you're starting from zero, you don't have the privilege to live like the rich. You have the right to dream, but not the right to fool yourself into thinking that extravagant spending is part of your rise. It's not. It's a trap. It makes you feel like you're experiencing life when in truth you're selling off your future just to satisfy a few fleeting moments of excitement. You can't build financial freedom if your spending is driven by emotion. And you certainly can't invest if you spend everything you earn just to maintain a fake image. Be honest with yourself. What do you need and what do you want? Do you really need that new car, or do you just want to be seen a certain way? Do you need those shoes, or are you trying to mask your insecurity with something that looks expensive? These are hard questions, but if you don't ask them, you'll pay the price with a decade stuck in the cycle of consumerism, working just to fund things you bought out of pride. On the sad part, no one cares as much as you think. People look once, then forget. But you'll remember through the bills, the debt, and the restless sleep at night, worrying about money. Spending money doesn't make you poor, but spending it the wrong way, at the wrong time, for the wrong reasons will. Rich people invest first, spend later. Poor people spend first, then think about investing once the account is already empty. The issue isn't how much you earn, but how you treat what you earn. If you keep increasing your expenses every time your income rises, you'll never accumulate anything. Personal finance isn't magic. It's disciplined decisions repeated daily, even when no one sees, even when you have to say no to what you want in order to protect what you need. I always tell young people, don't upgrade your lifestyle, upgrade your mindset. Instead of chasing logos, chase skills. Instead of trying to stand out with what you wear, stand out with how you think. Truly wealthy people don't flaunt, they build. They understand that a single dollar saved today could be a major opportunity tomorrow. What about you? What are you using your money to build? A better version of yourself, or a flashy shell that leaves you drained inside? Don't let temporary spending decisions steal your long-term stability. Choose to live below your means. Not because you're stingy, but because you have vision. Because you understand that living beneath today is the only way to rise above tomorrow. And one day, when you truly achieve financial freedom, you won't need to prove it through the things you wear, but through the calm you feel each morning when you wake up, knowing you owe nothing to anyone, not even to life itself. If you're waiting to feel ready before you begin, you'll be waiting your entire life. Readiness is not a destination. It's the most sophisticated trap your mind constructs to keep you in your comfort zone. It disguises itself as logic, as reasonable excuses, but in truth, it's just procrastination in disguise. You say, I'll start when things are more stable, but the truth is, things are never truly stable. Life never stops changing. Finances are never perfect. Time is never enough. You can't wait when you don't even know what exactly you're waiting for. And if you keep postponing every action until you feel ready, you'll realize this too late. You've missed every opportunity that could have changed your life. I used to believe that confidence was a prerequisite for starting, but I was wrong. Confidence is the final reward, not the starting gear. You don't become ready before doing something difficult. You only start to feel ready after you've stepped in, stumbled, stood back up, and learned something through real experience. All the preparation on paper only gives you mental reassurance. But turning points in life don't come from reassurance. They come from courage. And courage doesn't require you to feel ready. It only requires you to act, even when you're not. I've met countless smart people full of potential, skills, and big ideas, yet they're still stuck at the starting line. They wait until they finish another course, save up a certain amount, wait for their kids to grow, their job to calm down, or life to settle. But they don't realize every delay comes with a cost. Every month you don't start is a month lost in compound advantage. A month where someone else passes you just because they acted while you were still hesitating. In this world, the people who get results are not always the best. They're the ones who started the earliest, moved the most consistently, and learned the fastest from their own mistakes. You say, I'm afraid of failing. Of course you are. Who isn't? But you don't have to be fearless to earn the right to act. Fear is a natural reflex, but being paralyzed by fear is a choice. The truth is, not starting doesn't protect you from failure. It only guarantees that you'll never know what success feels like. And if you keep waiting to feel ready, you'll eventually see that every opportunity has passed, everyone else has moved on, and all you're left with is a beautiful plan sitting in a drawer. You need to understand this. Growth doesn't come from a sense of safety. It comes from daring to step beyond your own limits. The so-called readiness is just an illusion that makes you believe there will be a perfect moment where everything aligns. But that moment doesn't exist. It never comes. And the people you see succeeding aren't there because they started at the right time. They're there because they started even when it might not have been. They learned along the way. They adjusted when they were wrong. They moved forward while still uncertain. And that's what created the biggest gap between them and the rest. The difference between the rich and the poor doesn't lie in their level of preparation. It lies in their attitude toward action. The poor often wait for signals from the outside. They ask others, wait for approval, overanalyze risk, and end up shelving everything. Meanwhile, the rich understand this. Clarity only comes after action. They don't need to see the whole road. They only need to see the next step. And they take it one step at a time until they arrive where they want to be. That's not luck. That's strategy. If you're waiting for a sign, this is your sign. If you're looking for a reason to begin, this is your reason. If you don't start now, you will regret it. Not because you were wrong, because you never had the courage to try. Everything you want, a better job, financial stability, a healthier body, a brighter future, lies on the other side of your decision to act. No wave of readiness is coming to save you. There is only you and what you choose to do while you're still unsure. Starting while nervous is normal. Starting before you feel good enough is wise. Starting even when you're unclear about the outcome, that's the only way to discover what you're truly capable of. So if you're still wondering whether or not to begin, the answer is yes, you should. Not because you're fully prepared, but because you'll never be. And the time you spend waiting to feel ready is exactly what's robbing you of the future you could have already built. Not everyone with a degree has money. Not everyone who speaks well acts wisely. And certainly not everyone who knows a lot ends up wealthy. Knowledge is a potential asset, but if you don't convert it into action, it becomes a kind of useless asset. Worse yet, when you're deluded by what you already know, you shut yourself off from everything you don't. That's when you fall into the most dangerous trap of adulthood, the I already know that mindset. You're not poor because you lack information. You're poor because you think you're already good enough not to keep learning. And that's why you're not getting ahead. The I already know mentality makes you hear without truly listening, see without really observing, and live without actually growing. You read a book, watch a video, hear a piece of advice, and then nod and move on thinking you understand. But understanding is never enough. Application is what creates results. And only those humble enough to relearn, to go deeper, to put things into practice are the ones who actually change their lives. I once met a janitor, no college education, but he owned 3 properties and had stable passive income. When I asked how, he told me he read every night, attended free seminars, watched financial videos, and always looked for ways to learn from those ahead of him. On the other hand, I spoke with an economics graduate who claimed to understand the market inside out, but didn't even have a personal financial plan. He assumed that because he had a degree, all advice was basic or already known, but knowing without doing is no different than not knowing at all. And he remained stuck in the cycle of working, spending, borrowing, repaying, always broke before the month ended. Wealth doesn't come from how much you collect, but from how much you apply consistently until it produces real outcomes. Learning isn't a one-time event. It's a survival behavior, something to maintain like breathing. If you stop learning, you're accepting to fall behind. No one stays in the same place forever. Either you're moving forward or you're getting left behind. And the saddest part, the more knowledge you acquire, the more likely you are to fall into the trap of arrogance. You think you know enough, so you stop updating, stop asking, stop adjusting. But the moment you stop seeking, the game begins to leave you behind. You might know about investing, but are you actually investing? You might understand expense tracking, but are you reviewing your finances weekly? You might talk about personal development, but are you actually dedicating daily time to improve yourself? The world doesn't pay you for how much you know, it pays you for how much you can execute from what you know. If you can't turn knowledge into action, then everything you know is just theory, and theory doesn't pay the bills. Don't let intellectual pride kill your financial potential. The smarter you are, the more you need to learn. The higher you rise, the more new perspectives you'll need to stay aligned. The wealthy never stop learning, not because they know nothing, but because they understand. The world changes too fast for outdated thinking to yield new results. And they know learning isn't just about acquiring facts. It's how you keep your mind flexible, expansive, adapted, to keep evolving with change, to stay alert to opportunity. I used to think that once I reach a certain level, I wouldn't need to keep learning. But then I looked around and realized the people I admire most, entrepreneurs, inventors, successful investors, are the ones who never stop learning. They read books while flying, learn from failures, consult mentors, and are willing to re-question even their oldest beliefs because they understand this. If you're too arrogant to be taught, you're too ordinary to go far. You don't need to be a genius to get rich, but you do need to be humble enough to learn every day, not because you lack intelligence, but because the world never stops changing, and the one who stops first loses first. If you're truly serious about your financial future, stop asking, "Don't I already know this?" Start asking, "How much of what I know am I actually applying?" And if the answer is not much, then that is where you need to start, not with a new book, but with a new mindset, the mindset of a lifelong learner. You may have a will of steel, but if you spend most of your time around weak people, you'll become weaker. You may carry a burning desire to rise, but if your surroundings are filled with people who are just getting by, you'll slowly get used to that kind of life too. Not because you're incapable, but because human beings are highly contagious creatures. We absorb attitudes, beliefs, and life standards from those closest to us, whether we realize it or not. That's why if you truly want to change your life, don't just change yourself, change the environment you live in. Look at your 5 closest friends. What's their average income? What do they talk about when you gather? How do they spend their free time? How do they respond when you talk about goals, discipline, and personal growth? These questions aren't about judging who's good or bad. They're about helping you realize one simple but crucial truth. Are you being nourished or dragged down? Is your environment fertilizer for growth, or is it a weed killer that's slowly choking your desire to improve? I've been in groups where every conversation revolved around gossip, blame, and fear of change, where someone else's success was brushed off as luck, where personal effort was mocked as fake, where even saving money or studying a little was ridiculed as trying too hard. Stay in environments like that long enough, and you'll stop daring to dream big, not because you're not capable, but because you're afraid of being isolated. And when you fear isolation more than mediocrity, you've officially buried your own potential. The wealthy understand this deeply. They actively build selective circles. They seek out people who are better, more disciplined, who have higher standards, not to compare, but to level up. They're not afraid to walk into a room where they're the least accomplished, because they know in that room, they get pulled upward. They're forced to grow. They don't talk about others. They talk about ideas, strategies, opportunities, and responsibilities. And that way of speaking reshapes their entire mindset and lifestyle, bit by bit. On the other hand, people who cling to old circles out of fear of change are often the ones who stay stuck the longest. They say it's love, but really it's just keeping each other trapped in familiarity. They call it friendship, but it's actually a silent alliance of procrastination. Every time you say you want to do something big, they suggest maybe later. Every time you try to get serious about discipline, they nudge you to just relax for once. And little by little, those words, those actions, tie you back to a version of yourself you no longer want to be. You don't need to cut people off to grow, but you do need to reorganize your priorities. No one's forcing you to turn your back on old friends, but if you're stepping into a new chapter, you need new teammates. People who make you feel uncomfortable for not doing enough. People who push you to think bigger, act more seriously, and keep promises to yourself more consistently. The discomfort of being around those who are better than you will soon turn into an asset if you're humble enough to learn and determined enough not to retreat to your old comfort zone. Remember, your environment doesn't just affect the speed of your growth, it determines whether you'll continue to grow at all. A barren field can't nourish a strong seed. A room full of negativity will extinguish any spark of passion. And a group of friends who don't share your ambitions will turn your goals into something weird. If you no longer feel excited to share your dreams, if you have to hide your progress to avoid being mocked, then it's time to leave that room, not because you think you're better, but because you know you deserve better. The truth is, you can't fly high if you keep tying yourself to those who only know how to crawl. You can't expand your vision if you only speak with people who always look down. You can't become great if your daily conversations are small, shallow, and spark no fire inside you. So if you're truly serious about personal growth, start by auditing your ecosystem. Choose to stay close to people who won't let you be lazy, people who make you feel ashamed for not keeping your own word. And if you haven't found them yet, go out and find them, because you deserve to grow in an environment where growth is normal, not something you have to ask permission for. You can eat healthy, exercise regularly, and read every day, but if you surround yourself with toxic relationships, you will still be drained from the inside. Not because you're not strong enough, but because no one stays strong forever in an environment that constantly depletes their energy. The relationships in your life, whether with friends, partners, co-workers, or family, are doing one of two things: either lifting you up or dragging you down, either helping you fly or keeping you stuck. There is no gray area here. It's either or. I used to believe that as long as I was good enough, I could be around anyone and still maintain my growth. But I was wrong. No one grows sustainably in an unsupportive environment, and no one keeps their passion alive for long when they constantly have to defend it against doubt, criticism, or even mockery from those closest to them. You say you want to save money, they laugh and call you stingy. You share a dream, they scoff and say you're unrealistic. You try to change your habits, they tempt you back into old cycles. And each time you lose a small piece of belief in yourself, not because you're weak, but because the environment around you doesn't allow your growth to survive. Be honest with yourself. If you have to hide your ambition just to fit into a relationship, then that relationship isn't worth keeping. Real friendship doesn't make you feel guilty for wanting to improve. It doesn't force you to shrink so others feel more comfortable. On the contrary, it fuels you, challenges you to grow, and holds you accountable for what you say you want. Every person in your life silently calibrates the standards inside you. If you're in a group where laziness is normal, you'll soon see discipline as strange. If you're surrounded by reckless spenders, you'll find saving boring. But if you're among the brave, the creative, the disciplined, you'll naturally raise your own standards, not because of pressure, but because of inspiration. I've had to let go of certain relationships simply because they no longer aligned with where I was headed, not because I thought I was better than anyone, but because I understood this. If I continued relationships based only on memories, I'd pay for it with my future. Beautiful memories aren't enough to justify keeping someone in your life if their presence slows you down, discourages you, or causes you to doubt yourself. In truth, no one is ever really left behind. Some people just refuse to move forward, and you can no longer afford to stand still. You need to start protecting your mental space with the same seriousness that successful people protect their assets. Don't allow anyone to plant doubt, sarcasm, or toxic energy in your mind, stuff that takes you a week to wash off. Don't let someone's careless words become the mirror that distorts how you see yourself. And above all, don't let the fear of offending someone lead you to abandon yourself. Take time to notice who makes you want to be better, who reignites your commitment to yourself, who helps you think bigger, live stronger, and refuse to settle for an average life. Hold them close. On the flip side, if someone constantly dismisses you, belittles you, or makes you question your worth, then no matter who they are, you need to learn to let go, not because you hate them, but because you love yourself. Remember, what you're exposed to every day forms the mental climate you breathe. One negative person can turn your entire day into a storm cloud. One sarcastic comment can haunt you for weeks. But in contrast, one timely encouragement, one true companion can change the entire direction of your life. So don't underestimate the power of the relationships you choose to keep or let go of. They are either the immune system or the virus of the future you are building. If you're serious about your personal growth journey, it's time to ask, who's on this train with you? Some people will refuel you, navigate for you, and help you see farther. And others, whether unintentionally or deliberately, are slowly drilling holes in the ship. You cannot soar if you keep carrying baggage you no longer need. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone else is to walk away. No one sabotages you more than you do. No one blocks your dreams more effectively than the habits you repeat every single day. And no one can save you if you haven't yet dared to point at yourself and say, the person destroying me is me. That statement sounds harsh, but it's the first step to reclaiming control of your life, because only when you stop blaming can you become clear-headed enough to act. Only when you stop hiding from the truth can you begin to rebuild from where the damage began. You say your life hasn't improved for many reasons, because your boss is incompetent, because your salary is low, because the market is tough, because your parents didn't teach you enough, because you've been unlucky. It all sounds reasonable. But let's be honest, have those reasons changed anything? Or have they just helped you feel innocent, allowing you to continue living exactly as before? You can defend yourself so thoroughly that you end up believing every failure was someone else's fault. But you can't be both the victim and the victor in your life story. One of them has to go. And only when you drop the victim role can you seize true power, the power to change. I used to be like you. I used to believe that if my circumstances changed, I would be better. I used to blame the system, my parents, the society, but then I realized no one's coming to save me, and I couldn't afford to wait any longer. The more I waited, the more I withered, the more I blamed, the more powerless I became. Until one day, I looked in the mirror and admitted, I am the problem. But because of that, I can also be the solution. That moment was painful, but liberating. That's the moment you stop self-destructing and start taking responsibility. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself. No one's asking you to carry all the guilt and sit in self-punishment. It's not about guilt, it's about awareness. You don't need to regret the past, you just need to stop repeating it. Every morning you wake up is a new chance to rewrite the script. But you can't write the next chapter if you keep rereading the old ones with the same mindset. There's nothing I can do. No, you can't, and you must. Taking responsibility means stopping the search for reasons why you haven't started, and starting anyway, even without everything in place. It means instead of asking, why am I like this, you ask, what can I do to stop being like this? It means sitting down, looking your habits in the face, and having the courage to name the procrastination, the compromises, the lack of commitment, no sugarcoating, no avoiding. And every time you're about to blame something external, you pull yourself back and remind yourself, I can't control everything, but I can always control how I respond. Taking responsibility means understanding that no one in this world owes you anything. No one has to understand you, support you, or recognize you. If you want respect, live in a way that earns it. If you want higher pay, create more value. If you want a better opportunity, become someone that opportunity cannot ignore. You can't sit around wasting your time, energy, and money on things that don't move you forward and expect miracles to happen. Every decision you make today is a brick, either building a beautiful future or building a prison for yourself. The words you say, the things you spend money on, the people you choose to walk with, all of it creates an ecosystem. Either it nourishes you or quietly exhausts you. And if you keep living on autopilot without reflection or adjustment, don't be surprised when one day you look back and find yourself far off from the life you once dreamed of. You don't need to be a genius to change. You just need to be honest with yourself, look at your actions, admit what isn't working, and make a promise. I will do things differently. Not starting next week, not next month, but right now. Because change doesn't begin with a grand event. It begins with a simple choice to stop blaming, stop making excuses, stop living passively, and start living with intention. When you take responsibility, you are no longer a puppet of circumstance. You are the author of the story. And even if you get it wrong, at least you're the one holding the pen. That's a power no one can take from you, unless you give it up yourself. So don't wait for someone to give you permission to begin again. Give it to yourself right now and start the journey you could have been on long ago if only you had stopped self-destructing a little sooner and taking responsibility one day earlier. Every action you repeat daily is never just a small thing. Every time you hit snooze for 10 more minutes, every time you choose Netflix over learning a new skill, every time you scroll through social media instead of planning your finances, you are sending a clear signal to life. I choose delay over progress. I choose temporary comfort over lasting success. No one needs to sabotage you. All it takes is for you to keep repeating mediocre habits, and one day you wake up and realize you've been left behind not because you lacked potential, but because you were too committed to the wrong choices. We are not shaped by impulsive moments, but by the silent habits we repeat. What kills your dreams isn't a major failure. It's the tiny compromises made daily, quietly, unnoticed. And the worst part? You've grown so used to them that you no longer see them as a problem. You believe that as long as you occasionally do something big, it'll make up for the rest. But the truth is, the future isn't built by occasional breakthroughs, but by consistent choices. Successful people don't win because of dazzling moments. They win through invisible consistency. A bad habit doesn't just slow you down, it quietly erodes the trust you have in yourself. Every time you say you'll wake up early and don't, you're teaching yourself that your own promises don't matter. Every time you say you'll save money but spend recklessly, you're programming your mind to believe that discipline is optional. And when that repeats long enough, you become someone incapable of self-leadership. No one needs to block your success. You're already doing that on your own. On the other hand, a good habit, no matter how small, holds the power to create compounding returns. 10 minutes of reading each day may not change you overnight, but after a year, you'll have ideas in your mind that 99% of people don't. 15 minutes of morning movement may not make you an athlete, but it sharpens your mind, strengthens your discipline, and helps you stay composed under pressure. And most importantly, every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're rebuilding trust with yourself. You're giving yourself living proof that I can count on me. I'm not telling you to change your entire life overnight. I'm asking you to take an honest look at your daily schedule and ask, are the things I'm repeating bringing me closer or further from my goals? If the answer is further, then you don't need more motivation. You need to eliminate the habits that are keeping you stuck in mediocrity. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop doing what's holding you back. A person who doesn't realize they're self-sabotaging is a person who will never find the exit. Re-examine the things you've labeled as harmless, a few minutes scrolling before bed, a meal you overindulged in to relieve stress, the soft rejections of discipline hidden in phrases like, I'll do it tomorrow. All of it comes with a price. Not an immediate one, but a long-term one. That slow, silent accumulation of negative momentum is why you always feel busy but not productive, always dreaming but never arriving, always trying but never truly advancing. Successful people aren't free of bad habits. They're simply more aware. And they don't let those habits linger for long. They act quickly, adjust early, and absolutely do not let a bad pattern grow into a wrong lifestyle. You can do the same. Starting today, you don't need inspiration. You don't need a perfect day. You only need to choose one habit that's quietly killing your potential and stop it to one decision, then one action, but then repeat. And if you repeat long enough, you won't need to try anymore because it'll already be who you are. I've seen people transform completely, not because their circumstances changed, but because they dared to change what they repeated daily. No one is born with the right habits, but anyone can choose new ones, and so can you. Each day is a silent election. Are you voting for the weaker or stronger version of yourself? Are you reinforcing or dismantling your future with the small choices you make? The answer lives inside every action you take when no one is watching. Habits are not neutral. They either build you or break you, and you are signing a contract with them every single day. So the question is, who are you signing with today? You don't need to wait for another opportunity, another sign, or another perfect day. Everything you're looking for, a better life, more stable finances, greater confidence, freedom, and a sense of worth, all begins in one place. The decision you make today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when circumstances are more favorable, but right now. Because the more you delay, the more you build a habit of waiting. And that habit will quietly kill every ounce of potential inside you before you even get the chance to use it. Don't underestimate a small decision. A brave nod in the face of fear, a tiny step towards something you've long avoided, a simple act of keeping your word to yourself. They may seem insignificant, but if you keep at them long enough, they'll reshape your entire life. Because life doesn't change through dramatic turning points. It changes through the quiet decisions you make consistently, even when no one claps, no one notices, and sometimes not even you can see the results yet. But trust me, every success is a reward for those who dared to begin. When they had nothing, knew nothing, and had no one's belief but their own. I know you've been tired. I know you've tried to change many times, only to end up disappointed. You've made plans, only to fall apart halfway through. You've made promises to yourself only to break them again. And slowly you started to believe maybe you can't change anymore. But that's not the truth. That's just the result of letting emotion make decisions in place of commitment. You haven't failed because you lack ability. You just haven't stayed in the process long enough to let it work. You gave up too soon, too easily. And you've repeated that so many times it became familiar. So today, I want you to do one thing. Decide again. No fanfare, no announcement. Just look yourself in the eye and say, I will not keep living this way. Start with the smallest things. Wake up on time. Stop spending carelessly. Finish that task you've left hanging. Say no to things you know are pulling you backward. These small changes are the foundation. They won't impress anyone at first, but they'll determine how strong your future truly is. You don't need anyone to believe in you to start. You only need you. The truth is, some people will doubt you. Some will laugh at your change. Some will say, you'll go back to your old ways soon. But that's not proof you're wrong. That's proof you're becoming different. You don't need to react. You don't need to argue. You just need to keep going long enough for the change to no longer be something you're trying, but something you are. Because the real winner isn't the one believed in the earliest. It's the one no one can doubt anymore once the results are undeniable. If today you still feel lost, unsure of yourself, unable to see the light at the end of the tunnel, then that's okay. This is not the end. This is the beginning. No one starts with certainty. Everyone begins with doubt, confusion, and a pile of unanswered questions. But they still begin. And that's what sets them apart. They don't wait for motivation. They act to create motivation. They don't wait to feel ready, act their way into readiness. And so starting today, because every journey begins with one decision. And if you don't make that decision, no one can make it for you. Don't confuse motion with progress. You can stay busy your whole life and never go anywhere if you haven't clearly decided where you're headed. And don't believe you need a complete map to start. You only need the first step. And the courage to take it. I don't need to know who you are or how many times you failed or how many times you quit. I only need you to start again. This time with a level of commitment you've never given yourself before. This time isn't, let's see how it goes. This time is, I'm doing this, and I'll keep going until it's done. Now, you can't control the past, but you can always control the choice you make right now. And that one choice, just one, is enough to reroute the entire course of your life. You don't have to know how far you'll go. You only have to begin. And begin with a resolve that you will not turn back. Because the decision you make today is the beginning of everything.